This is a clip from the Run It Back Philly live show every day at 10 a.m. everywhere. YouTube, Twitter, Playback TV, and so on, and so on, and so on. We're taking over the world. Hit the like button. Give me 500 likes on the video. Enjoy it. Thanks for being here. Peace.
Run it back, Philly. No frauds, no fanboys, no intros.
Mac McClung had 20 points off the bench, 9 rebounds, 9 assists, was a plus 29. And he played great in a couple of those G League games, the G League finals games, and he played great in the G League the whole year. Should Mac McClung be a rotational player for the 76ers this season? I can't go playoffs. I will say this. A says no in the chat. Let's look at it this way. The old school way of valuing Philadelphia 76ers players. Let's go old school. Is he better than Furkan Korkmaz? That's what you always got to say, because the Sixers release players with an open roster spot like Isaiah Joe. The Sixers keep players on the deep bench that get no run whatsoever. And then you got players in the G League who can come up to the NBA and drop 20 points off the bench, against essentially G League talent. But is he better than Furkan Korkmaz? I think I'll take Mac McClung in one of my last roster spots in the regular season over a couple of players that are on this roster. I will say that. But, some people coming at me and saying, watch Mac McClung's highlights, look what he can do. This kid's, you just kind of you can't really overrate him based on this game or, the G League finals games. You just can't say that. He's had run with other NBA teams, a short stint with the Lakers. He's gotten opportunities. The problem with Mac McClung is that he's 6'1" and he can't guard anybody in the NBA. He just can't. We know he can dunk. He has a little bit of a combo game. He has a little bit of ball handle game, a transition game. He has a nice 3-point shot. A couple of times in this game, he hit some wide open threes. A couple of times in the last game and those G League finals games, he hit some threes. There was a play where Cam Thomas went under a screen and he made him pay by hitting a 3 right over the top. I like that. That's something I'm not seeing from certain players on the very deep end of the bench for the Sixers. So I guess that's how I got to look at it. Do I think Mac McClung at least deserves one of those last roster spots maybe next season? I don't know. But I saw him hit that 3. The problem is Cam Johnson comes down the other end, and Cam Thomas, comes down the other end and shoots right over Mac, right over him. Didn't make a move, didn't try to call for a screen, nothing, just shot over top of him because he's 6'1". So it's tough. He's fun. He has a lot of energy. He's a ton of athleticism. Obviously, the kid is doing 360 through the legs dunks in high school. But to be 6'1" and not really be able to guard anybody, you got to have some elite. You have to have something elite to get by in the NBA, like a Trae Young ball handling and vision, like something like that. I'm not really seeing it. I just think he's too small, unfortunately. What else do I have on Mac McClung? There was a play against that's the one over the screen. Patty Mills shot over him also. I saw that. And to be that size, you're going to have something elite in the NBA. So the people that are hitting me up on Twitter and Instagram and everywhere else and saying, Mac deserves a chance, I don't know. I'm not really seeing it. He's had short chances in the NBA so far. I'm not saying he shouldn't be in the NBA, though. I will agree that he should probably be at least on teams like the Sixers, the end of the Sixers bench. I would say there's no reason for Mac McClung to not be a deep bench player on the NBA, on an NBA team, on this roster. When you look at guys like Korkmaz, who never gets any run, or who else is down there? Montrezl Harrell never plays anymore, which don't hold your breath on that one, because Doc Rivers is approaching the playoffs. And Doc Rivers approaching the playoffs scares me no matter what. No matter what. Doc Rivers approaching the playoffs scares me. Jaden Springer in this game only played 2 minutes. And I know the first thing people are saying when Jaden Springer only plays 2 minutes. So I was in a car on a way to a family event, and I'm looking at the stats, and I'm saying in the first quarter, and I'm saying, why is Jaden Springer only have 2 minutes in this game? And I asked it on Twitter. Somebody in here said he was hurt. Somebody in one of these chats just a couple minutes ago said he was hurt. Were you talking about Jaden Springer? Because I didn't hear that he was hurt. Nobody replied to me on Twitter saying that he was hurt. No, I was riding in the passenger seat, Kopik. I was riding in the passenger. Was he hurt? Did you guys hear that Jaden Springer had an injury, that he didn't come back in the game? What happened? Why did he only play 2 minutes? Doc said it post-game. What did he say? Doc said that in the G League finals, he got hurt, so Doc was resting him. Hurt his ankle in the G League finals. Okay, fair enough. That makes sense. Well, either way, I wanted to cover the topic because Jaden Springer has some ability. Jaden Springer has started to look like a player that Daryl Morey drafted in the first round. And I do think most NBA teams, at least throughout the regular season, most NBA coaches, aside from Doc Rivers and probably Tom Thibodeau, would be experimenting with players like Jaden Springer throughout the season. They would be putting them on the floor here and there for 5 minutes, especially when a team looks like the Sixers have looked in certain parts of the season where they're stagnant, they're getting beat in transition, they look terrible defensively on the perimeter in certain games. You would think, I would bet that there's a lot of NBA coaches that would say, hey, I got this kid on my bench who's a fantastic perimeter defender, a fantastic one-on-one defender, has maybe more athleticism than anybody on the whole roster, and can play defense, can shoot the three, can handle the ball, can drive to the rim. I've seen it on a G League level. I've seen it in garbage time in NBA games. A lot of coaches would experiment with that throughout the regular season. Unfortunately, the Philadelphia 76ers have the one coach in the history of the NBA that has flat out never experimented with anybody ever, unless he's experimenting with a 40-year-old veteran minimum player that they just signed 2 weeks before the playoffs. That was a George Hill reference. Shake Milton saves a game in the playoffs. Tyrese Maxey saves a game in the playoffs when he's a rookie, and Doc Rivers goes with George Hill in game 7 and the Sixers lose. But all of that was because Ben Simmons was a fraud and couldn't play point guard, and every time it came down to it, you had to panic, try to find a point guard. But Doc always goes with the older guy. I do think a lot of NBA coaches would have experimented with Jaden Springer at some point in the regular season. The regular season is the time to experiment. He's only 20 years old, but I do think he brings value to an NBA team. And who knows what he could have looked like by the time the playoffs come around if he would have gotten a chance throughout the regular season. Now we play a couple of games with where the starters sit, and Jaden Springer looks great in a lot of these games. It was always the shot for me that I didn't know if he would develop. He reminded me of Zaire Smith when I first saw him. I was like, this is the same thing. This Zaire Smith was a player that was drafted on physicality, athletic ability, and then it was like, but if he learns how to play basketball, he's going to be great. And I was kind of just tired of seeing the Sixers draft that, but if he learns to play basketball player, you know what I mean? Matisse Thybulle, same situation. Freak athlete. If we can teach him how to play basketball, he can be amazing. You know, and Jaden Springer, when we first drafted him, that's kind of what I thought. I was like, here's another one who's just a great athlete. And if we can teach him how to play basketball, he can be great. He's developing. This might be the first player the Sixers have drafted in my lifetime that I've seen actually be developed in the G League and like minor leagues, if you will, of the NBA in our development staff. Is the first player that I've seen, go from what he looked like when he was drafted to this. Tyrese Maxey, of course, but Tyrese Maxey was just kind of he's a self-developer. If you follow him on Instagram or follow anything he's ever done, his work ethic is crazy. If Jaden Springer has that same work ethic, who knows how good he can be? Maybe it was a call from someone up top, Maybe someone up top said, hey, Doc, this kid can play. Let's find out. I don't know. What are the chances you see Jaden Springer in the playoff? I'm going to ask you guys first. I'm going to read your answers, and then I'll give you mine. Dan Shryock says 0. Austin Baker says 5%. What are the chances you see him in the playoffs, and do you think he should get playoff minutes with the 76ers? 0 chance. Rashawn Shaw, 0 chance. 2 chance. Smooth Master, 0, 0, 0. I hope I'm wrong. Tim Starr, I don't think we'll see him 1 second. Ron says 0. Because Doc rested him, I say a 50% chance. Vincent, 50% chance. All right, that's interesting. There's 2 things here. If there's 2 reasons I think we're not going to see Jaden Springer in the playoff. Number 1, if Doc Rivers went the whole season not playing a player, not even experimenting with a player, not even trying to put him in any lineup the whole season, and then he plays 2 games at the end of the season when the starters rest, and he looks so good defensively, and he looks good enough on the offensive end, and he looks like he brings something that the Sixers are missing, and it's so evident that you then make him a part of the playoff rotation, that would make you look inept as an NBA coach. Some NBA coaches would be humble enough and have enough of a lack of ego to say, hey, this kid looked great in these 2 games. This kid stuck Trae Young one-on-one. Something even Ben Simmons, unless you ask Ben Simmons himself, but something even Ben Simmons couldn't do in the playoffs. This kid stuck Trae Young in the final possession of a game to force it to overtime. One-on-one. I'm going to use him in the playoff. I'm going to try a couple of different lineups. If he looks terrible, then we'll back out, especially against the Brooklyn Nets, who don't stand a chance against the Sixers. Let's not even sugarcoat that. This first round matchup would be a good time to experiment with Jaden Springer in the lineup. But I think you would have to be very humble as an NBA coach to be able to say to yourself, I didn't give this kid a chance the whole season. I was wrong. He looks like he has some potential. He looks like he can help us out. I'm going to see what he can do in certain lineups in this first round matchup against the Brooklyn Nets. That would take a humble coach. Doc Rivers is 100% not doing that. Doc Rivers is 1,000% not doing that. You've seen Paul Reed play games where he looked like he was clearly the best backup center option on the roster. And the very next series, Doc Rivers went to DeAndre Jordan. He went to Paul Millsap. He went to whoever else. It's flat out not going to happen. Doc has this thing where he's terrified, it seems, to play young players in big spots. When it comes to the playoffs, you're going to see a lot of PJ Tucker. You're going to see a lot of Tobias Harris. Hopefully, at least by now, you see a lot of Paul Reed at backup center, but we'll see. You might see Dwayne Dedmon. You might see Montrezl Harrell. Because when it comes to the playoffs and it comes to Doc, I just don't have a good feeling about him playing young players. So I would say straight up, no, you're not going to see Jaden Springer in the playoffs. You got the chances of Doc Rivers playing Jaden Springer in the playoffs. You're going to see a lot of George Niang for sure. The chances of you seeing Doc Rivers play Jaden Springer in the playoffs are the same chances as Ben Simmons coming out, suiting up for the Nets in the playoffs and shooting 3-pointer. It's flat out not going to happen. But I love what I've seen from Jaden Springer so far. I absolutely love that he got these opportunities at the end of the season in some of these games where all of the starters sat. We see that he has potential now. Maybe he had it the whole time and we just didn't see it because he wasn't getting an opportunity at all. Cough, cough, Isaiah Joe. Maybe we're totally wrong, but I like it because moving into next season, I think you have a player that you can throw into the rotation and build on for the future because he's 20 years old. Jalen McDaniels is 24. Tyrese Maxey is 22. DeAnthony Melton is 24. So I like what Daryl Morey is doing, trying to win right now, but also trying not to bottom out when this whole thing's over. Because this process era, if it's a total failure, you don't want to fall straight off a cliff and have nothing left. You want to have something to move forward with in the future. And look, you didn't go balls to the wall. You didn't give up 7 first-round picks for somebody. You didn't give up 5 first-round picks for a Rudy Gobert, try to stuff him next to Joel. It hasn't been perfect, but I like what Daryl Morey's done. Trying to win now and at least trying to give you something to move forward with if none of this works. That's where I'm at.